If you have got gallstones of any size or description, is the only course of action the removal of the gallbladder?
No, it's not. If the gallstones are there but not symptomatic, you've had no pain, no bloating and burping after meals, which is the classic gallbladder symptoms of flatulent dyspepsia, as we call it. So burping and farting and bloating after meals.
Yeah.
And don't say that's normal daddy behaviour.
Would never dream of it.
If there are no associated symptoms, so it's an incidental finding. You've had a scan for something else and they go, oh yeah, you've got gallstones. You go, oh, I didn't know. I would generally watch and wait, but there are two exceptions to that. One, if you have significant other illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, etc., so that if your gallbladder did become badly inflamed or infected, your other diseases would be affected and your life would be at risk. So sometimes we say, look, I know it's not causing you trouble, but if it did cause you trouble and you're anticoagulated because of your heart disease, because of etc., or if you're elderly and diabetic, it would throw your diabetes right off and you would become quite ill with this. We ought to take it out while you're well and deal with it that way.
How would we know if we're not getting any symptoms? How would we know?
You don't, but if it's picked up incidentally on a scan, then you might have that conversation with someone. And someone might say, thank you very much, doctor, but I'll leave it be and I'll call you if it causes trouble. And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just being informed and having that conversation. The other scenario where I think it does warrant consideration, if you've had a scan and you've been found to be harbouring gallstones, if you travel a lot to remote places, you might consider having it taken out, because if it did flare up and cause trouble and you're in the middle of Timbuktu, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And gallstones are notorious for flaring up just when you don't want them to. So, when you're abroad, just the day before a wedding or something like that, and, knocking you for six. So, generally speaking, don't touch something that isn't broken, but actually, if there's a risk, it's a conversation. Now, if people say, yeah, I did have all those symptoms, but they've gone away and I'm fine now, and there's gallstones there, I would be saying, look, it's declared itself once already in the past. You're better off getting shot of this.
Right.
And again, it's the balance of risks things. Yes, there is the risk that you might suffer post-gallbladder looseness of stools. Very, very rarely it will unmask something else that's going on. But it's, again, balance of risks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know firsthand that if you do get gallstones and they do start to flare up, they're really painful. So it's worth the conversation. So let me just take you back to something you briefly touched on earlier. BAM, bile acid malabsorption. Many people have mentioned that in their comments, and something else called bile gastritis. So this is obviously a real thing, right? What is it?
So let's deal with bile gastritis first. So in the normal run of events, bile gets squirted out of your gallbladder into the intestine, where it's used up with food. And the food is the great neutraliser, if you like. It uses up the enzymes there. It uses up stomach acid. So people who get acid reflux, they have food and it takes the acid away. Same with bile. If you have your gallbladder removed and there's bile in the intestine all the time, sometimes it can come backwards up into the stomach.
Right.
And there it can irritate the stomach. Now, it happens in normal people, even with a gallbladder. You can get bile gastritis, and it's as much a feature of stomachs that aren't emptying properly as it is bile being squirted into the wrong place. And it's down to anatomy, function of your gastrointestinal tract, regularity of food intake, all that kind of thing. But bile gastritis is a real condition. It can be pretty nasty. It gives a real tummy ache, a real feeling of nausea. And sometimes we have to medicate people to get rid of the bile acid effects in the stomach. Antacids tend not to work very well for that.
Okay.
You need other drugs that help neutralize the bile, like the simethicone or some of the what we call chelating agents, the chalky medicines, which just bind it and flush it through, or food. You know, some foods will just wipe the bile through and help reduce the inflammation caused by bile in the stomach.
But bile gastritis then is an enhancer of other issues that you would suffer with, but not necessarily caused by the removal of the gallbladder. Is that, would I be right in saying that?
So removing the gallbladder does increase the likelihood of bile coming up into the stomach in between meals, because there's more bile in the intestine in between meals. Instead of being stored in the gallbladder, it's coming into the intestine all the time and going up back into the stomach, causing the irritation, the bile gastritis.